Good morning. This is KELOLAND On the Go with all you need to know in news and weather as you start your day.
Flooding in South Dakota has turned deadly. In a press conference Sunday, Governor Kristi Noem confirmed one flood-related death in the state. However, she said she wouldn't offer any other details out of respect for the family.
All I'm going to say is that I want to remind everybody to remember the power of water and the flow of water, and to stay away from flooded areas. Keep your children and your family members out of areas and looking at situations that may seem like something they haven't seen before, but it's incredibly dangerous for them to be anywhere near this kind of water flow that we're seeing.
Also at the press conference, Governor Noem called for a voluntary evacuation of the Dakota Dunes following flood threats from the Big Sioux River, which broke records for height levels over the weekend.
Additional actions are being evaluated following talks with the Department of Public Safety and the Department of Health. The interstate, I-29, closed last night at 6 p.m. from exit 2 to exit 9. DOT and private contractors will focus on creating levees to try and keep the flow of water manageable.
An 87-year-old man died Saturday afternoon in a single-car collision. Officials say the driver of a UTV was traveling north near Harrisburg. The road was closed at the time, and the east shoulder of the road had washed away. As the driver attempted to turn around, he went backwards over the edge of the washout. The UTV began to roll, and the driver was ejected. He was pronounced dead at the scene. No names have been released at this time.
The city of Sioux Falls issued an emergency declaration Saturday as the city deals with flood-damaged neighborhoods, a strained wastewater system, and a Big Sioux River overflowing its banks. Mayor Paul Tenhaken says Falls Park is not a safe place right now. He's urging people to stay away from the falls, especially wet rocks along the river's edge, until the water levees and levels recede.
It's really fascinating to see what's going on with the falls. I mean, the flow is impressive. Mother Nature is very strong, but I also saw people, a couple guys that were calves deep, knee deep, walking around in the water, and I just can't stress enough. It's a very dangerous part of our community when we have this much rain. So the park is open. I'm not going to be taking my kids down there or my family.
There were 9 water rescues in Sioux Falls last week, including one just upstream from Falls Park. Now let's check in with meteorologist Brian Karstens. Out with the rain and in with the heat, Brian.
Yes, that is correct. We got a lot of heat today out there in KELOLAND. Let's take a look at the heat advisory in effect for most of the region. Shaded in orange, so that goes from Aberdeen to Sioux Falls to Yankton. That means the heat index value will be well over 100. Take lots of breaks if you're working in the heat, a lot of water, stay hydrated the best that you can. And days like this have been few and far between so far this summer season. Now, looking at radar coverage this morning, we do have some showers and storms in North Dakota. Most of our area today will be capped. That means we're going to be too warm to support thunderstorms in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. However, in Minnesota, and I would say at this point, the Storm Prediction Center is definitely keying in on these problems east of Sioux Falls. There's kind of a large, slight risk zone there. And the problem is if we do get storms to root in this area, there will be damaging winds, and it's actually a setup here for a possible derecho. That word comes up again. No, nobody wants to hear that, but north of Minneapolis could be pretty rough today. We'll keep watching the weather here in KELOLAND, obviously updating that. Here's your forecast information today. 95 Sioux Falls, 93 in Aberdeen, 97 in Pierre. More details on the weather coming up.
Thank you, Brian. Mosquitoes will likely thrive with all the standing water from our recent rains in KELOLAND, but there are ways to keep mosquitoes from swarming around your home. The CDC recommends frequently emptying items that collect water like flower pot saucers, planters, bird baths, trash containers, and kids' toys and pools. For other ideas on how to mosquito-proof your home, go to this story on KELOLAND.com.
And you might think all the rain we've received is good for your garden, but too much moisture has a downside. While plants handle different types of weather in different ways, there are a few steps you can take to make sure your garden is prepared for any standing water left behind by the rain.
You really got to kind of watch what you're planting, where you're planting it. If you're noticing now that there's water standing in certain areas of the yard, make note of that I'm not going to plant something that doesn't like moisture in that area.
Yellow or black leaves on plants is one sign of overwatering. Coughlin says most gardens shouldn't need as much water in the next couple weeks.
The Foster Network in Sioux Falls received a generous donation. Scooter's Coffee in the Sioux Falls area had its annual Day of Giving event and donated 100% of the proceeds to an organization that's close to the owner's heart.
So my husband Travis and I are former foster parents, and in our 6 years as foster parents, we realized how overwhelming it can be to take in a new child. And even if you feel like your house is set up and you're ready to go, you're not. Kids show up and you don't have the right clothing, or you don't have the right shoes, or you don't have the school supplies.
The Foster Network collects donations for any season year-round, and right now, girls sizes 7 through 10 summer clothes are most needed. And that's a look at some of our top stories.
Now let's get one last look at your weather with meteorologist Brian Karstens. Brian?
All right, recapping the weather of the day and, of course, all the fallout from the river flooding. You know, as the creeks and streams are beginning to go down, we're just starting to get a sampling of the damage here. And we're going to have stories today here on KELOLAND News featuring these. But when you see concrete pilings and things like this suspended in midair off of bridges, that tells you a lot, doesn't it? And washed out roads, so many that we can't even begin to count all of them. But this is an example around Canton. Some of the areas near Canton ended up with the highest storm totals of nearly 18 inches of rain over the course of the last few days. We're watching the Big Sioux down around Dakota Dunes. A lot of trouble down there. All of this water is cresting in Dakota Dunes and North Sioux City this morning. How bad is it? Well, previous record on the Big Sioux, at least at right there at Sioux City, right where it comes into the Missouri River, is at 37.7 feet. We are getting measurements this morning as of 5 and 6 this morning at 45 feet. That's a lot of water moving down that Big Sioux River channel this morning. Now, today, aside from the flooding, we're going to deal with some short-term issues. That's the heat of the day. Now that we've got all this extra water in the ground and we got some heat going, we're going to have really high heat index values, likely over 100. I would say between 100 and 110 would cover most of southeast South Dakota. Folks in Aberdeen, your heat index not quite as bad, but it's still not very good. And again, the peak of this is probably around Yankton. 111, yeah, that's a high number. Certainly something we don't like to have there, but we have to deal with it today. Tomorrow, the heat index should improve and temperatures will be reduced. We'll be in the 80s, I think, for most of us in the afternoon. A little more tolerable there. Hopefully cooling off a little bit more toward Wednesday as a cold front comes in. I do want to mention on the pattern today, and I led off with this, that there are some risks of severe weather today in Minnesota. We're still thinking most of that should be outside of our coverage area. The assumption is the cap will hold on the atmosphere. Tomorrow and Wednesday, it cools off, but we don't really have a frontal system to produce widespread rain here. I would watch Thursday, Friday. By that point, the high pressure center to our southwest, this is going to kick up some tropical moisture coming in again from the west. There are some thunderstorms that develop in the plains. We're covering that as a 40 to 50% chance of rain in our 7-day. We do have a low up here along the Canadian border. That'll likely instigate some more strong to severe weather to our north. And again, we'll be more on the southern flank of that. So we'll see how much of that we get, but that'll be the next window to watch. There's probably another system to kick out here about day 7. Next Monday, you can see some storm activity again in the upper Midwest. So we'll just deal with these one at a time. Obviously, in between storms, all the cleanup and the damage and all of that to deal with. Here is the forecast here for today from the Storm Center. We're up in the mid-90s, Sioux Falls, 99 degrees in Yankton, 95 in Mitchell. Forecast lows tonight. Looks like we're down in the mid-60s to around 70. I do expect a couple of thunderstorms could fire up West River. I do want to mention that overnight. I don't think they're going to make it to Sioux Falls, and I think tomorrow will be in the middle 80s. Sioux Falls, Huron, Watertown's probably about 82. The 7-day forecast, there's that next round of rain. Chances Thursday and Friday. Highs will be actually in pretty decent shape going into Thursday. We'll warm up Friday and then may cool back down on Saturday and Sunday just a little bit into the 70s. Aberdeen, we'll watch that rain chance too for you folks Thursday and Friday. That's a little better shot by Friday. Looks like Pierre will also deal with some of those showers and thunderstorms during that time frame. High temperatures, though, pretty warm week. I think overall, aside from today's 98, 85 to 90, that's still plenty warm. And Rapid City also dealing with a lot of upper 80s and low 90s as we head through the next few days. Check out details of the weather online at KELOLAND.com.